G'day ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on this, my journey into the constraints-led approach for BJJ. My name is Sam Battlefields and today we're going to go through the class that consisted of Will and Ridwan. As I mentioned yesterday, I wanted to go back to the boxing tag, which is shoulders and torso. I mentioned a few reasons why I wanted to do that. These were evident in the game today. See if anyone notices. The goal today was to get chest on back or chest on thigh and held for 3 seconds. I'm looking to be a lot more explicit with a lot of my external cues or my games and the task constraints as well as the target objectives. Why? There are some people that might take some of the things literally, where they may just throw their chest down towards someone's thigh in the hope that it grazes it and they win. So I'm being extremely explicit by saying you can do it in any manner, but you have to hold it for 3 seconds. It's not just for people who may take it literally, it's also for new people. As I mentioned the other day, I noticed that I had missed out on a part of the development process for one of the fresh newbies, and being that I wasn't on top of it, even though it probably wasn't something that completely stopped him in his tracks, I feel like I could have handled it better. Ridwan got very close to doing that blast double that we were speaking about the other day, and the other good thing was Will was keeping his elbows in real tight, meaning that I couldn't get access to them like I would normally, and so I was looking for single leg, double leg from a much higher position. We then played a guard game where we'd be on our sides with essentially our frames all in place. The person on top had to break through those frames and get a chest-to-chest pin, while the person on the bottom, their goal was just to maintain and keep as many frames in as possible and stop that pin. Ridwan made a really good point. As people start going around to north-south, your frames aren't as strong, which had a callback from yesterday when we were doing the guard passing, but the person on the bottom could only use their legs, where Will had said if you keep one leg extended and one leg in tight, then it's harder to pass, which I then mentioned that keeping tension through that allows a lot more maneuverability, because as I went through in some internally cued thing yesterday, I'm able to feel when they're about to move. So we then played a little bit with that, and Ridwan could see the act to perceive, perceive to act. So we moved on to the control games, and this week we're focused on side control. Yesterday we looked at controlling and maintaining the shoulders on the floor. Today we focused on keeping the hips on the floor. And of course, the person on the bottom, their goal was to get to their side or have their hips free for 3 seconds. It was interesting to see the differing types of control of the legs. Everyone turned away from the shoulders and faced the legs as they controlled and covered the hips. Ridwan chose to collect both of the legs, whereas Will chose to collect only the top leg. It was a really good teaching moment to show the benefits of each one as a controlling mechanism, particularly as it relates to acting to perceive and perceiving to act. I didn't actually partake in this initially because I wanted them to see the differences in strategy, and we also discussed system degeneracy as Will had started to figure out that he needed to test one side, test another, push back, push back, push back, push back. He was using quite a large movement for each of these pushes, but eventually made the space that allowed him to get out. Then when I showed the same thing with Ridwan, I was able to show that I didn't need to use those big movements. I just needed to destabilize him, and that could be these really tiny movements. Again, these are external cues with internal sort of cues, but the goal was always destabilize the opponent. There were a couple of other external cues, such as I'm destabilizing him, I am trapping his arm underneath my hip, which allows me just to roll over. Obviously, this is an extremely constrained game, so there are many things that Ridwan could have done if he was allowed. We then discussed the single leg control and how that allowed me to get to my side much quicker, but this also provides the ability to act to perceive. If I've got control of one leg, I know that the only thing he can do is shift his hips out one particular way. So if that's the case, I can then take the next step to controlling. It was really cool to go through this because in the end there was no showing of any technique as such, but it was a go away and play with it situation. It was really cool in the free rolls as well. Will took advantage of a particularly deep underhook that he'd worked really hard to achieve and got a sweep that was absolutely textbook and got on top, and all of us celebrated. And this was validating for me because, of course, for the last couple of weeks I've been trying to impart the importance of the underhook. We also were starting from standing today in the open mat portion and looking to get actual takedowns and go from there. Part of what I looked to do initially, it wasn't intentional, but I got taken down, and so I focused on not accepting that I'd just been taken down and trying to get back up straight away, to get back on top as soon as possible. I then did this a couple more times. The main reason being is because I've got a competition this weekend, and although I am fairly confident now in my takedowns, I'm in the expert class, and there's people that have been black belts for years in this division. I did work on a single leg takedown for myself today, and one thing I really recognize is that there's no point in just grabbing it and then working for it. You have to grab it and go. It has to be done quick, otherwise people can fight it, and in that dogfight there's a potential I can lose, which means fighting hard to get back on top, which means expending energy. If you'd like to know more, go to battlefieldsgrappling.com.au and fill in the form. Everyone else, like, comment, subscribe.